People are calling this the slow pool theory. The pool at La Défense Arena in Paris is a little bit shallower than a standard Olympic pool. For the past few Olympics, the pool depth has been about 3 meters, but the pool in Paris is 2 meters and 15 centimeters deep. It doesn't seem like a big difference, but the claim is that this is actually causing a lot more turbulence in the water and that that's slowing the swimmers down.
Okay, so do you agree with that? Can we just either, talk about the credibility of that? Because I understand that it's got to do with the waves travelling either across the surface, but they're different because some bounce off the bottom of the pool as well. So what about the waves on the bottom to begin with?
That's right. Well, just to be clear, I'm a fluid dynamicist. I'm not an athlete and I'm not an expert in swimming. I can only speak
Not
about the
many of
pool
us are.
itself. Exactly right. Look, when the swimmers dive into the pool and when they're sort of kicking and pushing their way through the water, they create lots of waves, waves at the surface, which of course we see, and waves under the surface. And the idea here is that there are waves that are being created by the swimmers and then traveling down to the bottom of the pool, bouncing back up and creating turbulence, chaotic fluid motion at the surface of the pool, which is disrupting the swimmer's pace and rhythm and potentially also slowing them down through drag. That's the theory, at least.
Yeah.
But when you dig a little under the surface, if you like, dive beneath the surface, it doesn't really hold water. And the reason is because the waves that are traveling under the water are essentially sound waves. And sound waves travel very fast through water, about 1,500 meters per second. So when you do a little back of the envelope calculation, you come to the conclusion that the difference in speed of these waves comes down to about 1 millisecond. So
Right.
it's really not enough of a difference to change the turbulence in the pool, at least from the waves under the surface. The waves
Yeah.
at the surface, however, are a different matter.
Yeah, tell me about those because that relates to this thing called hull velocity, which the swimmers use to their advantage often. So if that's a little bit slower, they're all going to go a little bit slower.
That's right. So we also see these waves at the surface, of course. And as the swimmers are sort of swimming through the water, you can see a wave progressing in front of them and you can see waves progressing behind them. And if you're an elite swimmer, you can actually take advantage of these surface waves by positioning yourself exactly between two crests, right? So you can imagine a crest of the wave right in front and a crest of the wave right behind. And that's sort of allowing you to surf a little bit with the wave, allowing you to spend less energy swimming. So especially for those middle distance races and long distance races, for example, the 400-meter freestyle is a relatively long race, and energy conservation really matters. So if you can take advantage of those waves by swimming at that sort of a very well-defined velocity called the hull velocity, you have an advantage over your competitors. Now, what on earth has this got to do with the shallow pool theory or the slow pool theory? Well, shallow pools have slower surface waves.
Right.
We know this when we look at the beach, right? You can see that the waves are moving towards the beach. And as the sea floor becomes shallower, those waves start to slow down. They start to pile up. Eventually, they break. And so the same thing will happen in the pool. There might be a slightly slower wave in these shallower pools, and the swimmers may be subconsciously perhaps slowing down their pace a little bit to stay in that hull velocity.
Okay, so then is the slow pool theory here the culprit that we're not seeing records broken, or do you think there are other factors at play?
Oh, I think that, these are going to be very negligible differences. These are elite swimmers and they swim in all sorts of environments. I mean, for example, the Australian Olympic trials were held in a pool that's only 2 meters deep and there was world records broken there. I think that more the perception of the slow pool is potentially having a bigger effect than the reality.
Okay, and could it be the case that we're just approaching our limits of human performance?
Entirely possible too. I mean, the thing about world records is they're hard to beat, and every time you beat one, it becomes even harder to beat one again. There are definitely other sports, particularly track sports, where world records are much less common. Marathons are an example here. The world record for marathon times has been hovering just above 2 hours for quite a while now, and it may take a while before we break that 2-hour barrier. Swimming, their world records are a bit more common. So we have seen a lot of world records broken at the Tokyo Olympics and the Rio Olympics. But again, these are elite swimmers operating at their very top capacity. It's going to be hard to break records.